this proclamation will be again delivered on the 26th day at Hy-Vee, where the group will be selling poppies. So thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on any topic that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, council, anyone have something that's not on the agenda? Okay, then we'll move on to public hearings. Item A, special daily malt beverage and wine license for the South Dakota Shakespeare Festival on or about June 8 to 11, 2017 at the Prentice Park Bandshell. And Mike, please.
The South Dakota Shakespeare Festival has submitted an application for the special daily malt beverage and wine license for the Shakespeare Festival event to be held June 8th to the 11th at the Prentice Park Bandshell. Attached in the packet is the notice of hearing, a diagram of the area, along with a memo on the control measures and the police chief's memo. The police chief's report has recommended parameters for the event. As the event is being held on city property, ordinance allows the city council to include such conditions and restrictions as the governing body deems appropriate and consistent with state law. The South Dakota Shakespeare Festival has provided the release and indemnification, releasing the city from liability for the event. The certificate of insurance naming the city as additional insured has not been received yet. I've been in contact with the agent, and he thought it'd be sometime later this week. They anticipated having that certificate to deliver to the city. As noted in the police chief's memo, he's included the following conditions: that volunteers will distribute wristbands after IDs are checked to ensure purchases and consumers are 21 or older, that the South Dakota Shakespeare Festival will provide ushers who will monitor both the purchase area and audience grounds within the area designated. Ushers will also ensure no one removes a beverage from the audience area or the fenced concession area. The fenced concession area and audience area will be posted with signs instructing consumers not to remove alcoholic beverages from the designated area. Administration would recommend approving the issuance of special daily malt beverage and wine license, noting that it be contingent upon receipt of certificate of insurance naming the city as additional insured, and any other conditions the council would want to include.
Thank you, Mike. Excuse me, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this topic? Seeing none, council? Rich?
I'd like to excuse myself as I'm a member of the governing board on the Shakespeare Festival.
Mike, so note that, please. Other comments, questions?
I move approval on receipt of this certificate of insurance.
And the conditions that the chief laid out?
Yes.
Anything else as far as council? Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item B, annual renewal of malt beverage licenses. And again, Mike, please.
Applications for renewal of malt beverage license have been received from numerous businesses. I'll cover the list as soon as I kind of get done with the rest of the report. The police chief has prepared a report indicating any issues that have been raised since July 1, 2016. City ordinance requires a written management plan upon reapplication for licensees who are convicted of violating any laws, rules, regulation, or ordinance. We had management plans were received from 4 businesses that had failed compliance checks prior to the renewal applications being mailed out the end of March. It was NPC International for Pizza Hut, Casey's Retail Company for Casey's Store on Princeton Street, J. Ambry 7 for Freedom Value Center, and the City of Vermillion for the Municipal Liquor Store. The management plans were included in the packet. It should be noted there was Walmart failed a compliance check on April 5th. As the renewal applications have been sent out and theirs had already been received, we'll wait and require a management plan with the renewal in November. The City Council has the ability to renew licenses on basically 2 criteria: suitable person and suitable location. The fees that were received for these, the city receives $112.50 for an on-off sale malt beverage with South Dakota Farm Wine, $150 for an on-off sale malt beverage license, and $100 for off-sale malt beverage license. Businesses with video lottery machines, there's a $50 fee per machine that's included with the renewal. I'll go through quick the listing of reissuance of licenses that was received for the retail on-off sale malt beverage: Blue Ink for Little Italy's, Bunyan's LLC for Bunyan's Video Lottery, Cafe Brûlée for Cafe Brûlée, Charcoal Lounge Incorporated for Charcoal Lounge, the City of Vermillion for the Bluffs Golf Course and for the Municipal Liquor Store, Coyote Convenience Incorporated for Coyote Convenience, D&D Foods Incorporated for Hartford Steak Company Tavern, David Robb for the West Side Inn, Dwight Iverson for the Cherry Pit Stop Video Lottery, Fireworks Incorporated for Dakota Brick House, Gu Wei Zing for Asian Buffet, Mexico Viejo Incorporated for Mexico Viejo Mexican Restaurant, NPC International for Pizza Hut, Om Shri LLC for Speedy Mart, Prairie River Incorporated for Our Pizza, Pump and Stuff of Vermillion Incorporated for Pump and Stuff Video Lottery Room Number 1 and Pump and Stuff Video Lottery Room Number 2, Red Steakhouse Incorporated for the Red Steakhouse, Silk Road Cafe Incorporated for the Silk Road Cafe, Sunset Oil Incorporated for the Lucky 7 Casino, and Sunset Oil Incorporated for Sunset Casino. Valiant Vineyards Incorporated for Valiant Vineyard, Varsity Pub for the Varsity, for reissuance of package off-sale malt beverage license, Dwight Iverson for the Cherry Pit Stop, Hy-Vee Food Store for Hy-Vee, J. Ambry 7 LLC for Freedom Value Center, Pump and Stuff of Vermillion for the Pump and Stuff, Walmart Stores Incorporated for Walmart Supercenter, and then the reissuance of the package off-sale malt beverage license with South Dakota Farm Wine. We got Casey's Retail Company Incorporated for the Casey's General Store on Jefferson Street and the Casey's General Store on Princeton Street. Administration would recommend reissuance of the licenses pending any information received for the public hearing. And if there's a motion to deny the license, the reason for the denial needs to be included in the motion.
Thank you, Mike. Then for clarification, also people that have liquor licenses can sell under that and they wouldn't be in this group. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that has a comment or question about this? Seeing none, council? Any comments, questions?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second to approve all those that Mike listed. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thanks, Mike. Item C is a first reading of ordinance 1354 to amend Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 155 Zoning Regulations, Section 155.072 Off-Street Parking. Table 1 to amend the minimum parking requirements for rooming and boarding houses, sororities, and fraternities. Jose, please.
Thank you. The city has been working with the Alpha Site Delta Corporation Board on the construction of their new house at 12. They're 214 North Plum since 2015. During our conversation, staff arrived at the conclusion that the ordinance at the time, anyways, would not allow for the construction of new Greek housing in their existing locations due to the size limitations. For example, off-street parking requirements would force them out of the neighborhood or to purchase adjoining lots for parking lots. In 2016, the zoning ordinance was amended to by moving the Greek houses from a permitted use to a conditional use. This change would have allowed the Planning Commission the opportunity to work with the applicant to allow off-street parking on different sites, at different locations. The number of the required off-street parking would have remained the same, but the location of them would be modified by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission reviewed the current ordinance to be amended at their May 8th meeting. At that meeting, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the amendment. The sorority in question contacted the city recently expressing concerns regarding the parking requirements. Due to the proposed size of their new house, they would be required to provide 53 off-street parking stalls. They can only accommodate 8 off-street parking stalls within their lot, which means that they would have to provide the rest of the required parking off premises. We do have a map showing the location. So all of the darker red spots would actually be existing Greek housing, whether sororities or fraternities. This would be Plum Street, Pine Street, Clark Street. This is Prentice Park here. Everything over in this area is actually zone R2, which currently allows for Greek housing within there. This area here within the black would actually be the University District, the University Historic District. The current off-street parking requirements as exist today in the ordinance would actually require the Greek housing to considerably, or allow the Greek housing to considerably change the look of the neighborhoods. For example, the Greek housing, if they were to be reconstructed, they would actually, more than likely, would have to purchase, like I said, an additional adjacent lot and install a parking lot. So what you actually could run into is a lot of these Greek houses to have adjoining parking lots. And just in this block here of Pine and Plum, you could just have 3 Greek houses on one side, and the other side just be a huge parking lot. And even then, they might actually not have enough spaces within that lot to cover their parking requirements. The proposed change to the ordinance would require that the applicant provide, at the very least, enough parking to cover so that the on-street parking situation is not made any worse than it exists today. I do have this exhibit here. It's a little bit boring, but it's the easiest way that I figured to actually go through the ordinance the way it is right now. This is for a fictitious Greek house. Pick whatever you want. So the ordinance is actually going to be split into 2 sections. You're going to either have on the top here, the Greek house will be built. If a Greek house is built within land that has never been occupied or used by a Greek house, at that point we would essentially be requiring from the applicant the square footage of the new house as it's proposed, and then we would apply the ordinance as it exists today, which right now it essentially requires that the applicant provide 1 off-street parking for every 200 feet of square foot of floor area. So after you do the math, you essentially come up with 53 off-street parking that the applicant would be required to provide. Now, the ordinance also provides an additional item, I guess. If you're going to be building on land that had been occupied by either a building or a parking lot, a Greek parking lot, then the city would be requiring the applicant to supply the city with a number of existing off-street parking. We would also require the existing number of residents, and then we would also be asking for the proposed number of residents within the new house. I also give some numbers there. So essentially what we're going to be trying to do is to come up to the on-street parking demand. And what that number is the number of parking stalls right now, currently, before any construction occurs, that the house is taking off from street. So that's the number of cars parking on the street at this moment. And then doing some more math, very simple arithmetic, we would actually come up to the number of required parking. So essentially just subtracting the number of proposed residents or the number of on-street demand from the proposed residents, and then you would come up with that number. In our example here, it would essentially be 22 required off-street parking that this fictitious applicant would actually have to provide. So if this applicant had 8 parking stalls right now within their lot, and they're only required to provide 22 as opposed to 53, then you can see that it would be easier for that applicant to either, maybe they can buy a small portion of the lot across the alleyway or whatever the case might be and put that additional parking that's required there, or they could approach a different entity, whether it be the university, the church, or a neighbor, or whatever the case might be, and actually be able to provide that additional parking that's required. It's a lot better situation for the applicant and hopefully for the city in the long run. At this point, the city would, the only cost associated for the city would be publishing cost. With all of this been said, administration recommends adoption of the ordinance 1354 to amend the minimum parking requirements for rooming and boarding houses, sororities, and fraternities. The second reading of the ordinance will be on June 5th.
Thank you, Jose. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this topic at this time?
Hi, I'm Mary Duncan. I'm the president of the Alpha Zeta Delta Corporation Board. I'm also a resident here in Vermillion. We've been working on this project for quite some time, and as Jose explained, the parking has kind of come into our view as a huge issue, whether or not we can do this project. For us, we're rebuilding not because, oh, it'd be nice to have a pretty new house, but because our house and the condition of it currently is such that we have to do something with the house. Otherwise, we don't know what we do. So what we're looking to do is really find a way to work with the city and then work with the other great chapter houses to increase our availability of parking. So we've explored different options, and what it comes down to is creating, with having 8 spots behind our house and looking at needing 53 spots, creating 40-something spots on an adjacent lot just isn't reasonable. We'd be having to take up almost a whole block of parking. Our neighbors to the north own the lot behind them, and they said that one lot would only get them 8 parking spots. And so when you start to do that, how many lots do we need to gain in order to build a parking lot for 43, 47 parking spots? And that's a lot of land, and we don't know that it's in our neighborhood. And we started looking at the other projects. So in talking to some of the other fraternities and sororities, they've not embarked on a project like this because of the parking ordinance, because of having to come up to code for parking. They could come up to code for plumbing and all of the fire code, but coming up to code for parking at 1 parking spot for every 200 square feet, when inside of a sorority house or fraternity house, you have large chapter rooms. Like we'll have a 1,700-foot chapter room. Nobody's being housed in that chapter room, but that chapter room is used, well, for art projects and all kinds of other things, but for the chapter members to gather once a week. And so it comes to needing to find some kind of in-between negotiation. And so we really appreciate the city looking at this and seeing if there is something else available and being able to adjust what we could use for parking to saying that we have grandfathered in a on-street parking liability will help us move forward with this project, because otherwise right now, we'd go back to the negotiation board. We're not able to get the parking with the university the way we would like. And so with that, I really appreciate the City Council taking time to listen to this, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? Please.
Hi, I'm Sandy Dickinson. I'm an architect here in Vermillion, and I've been working with Alpha Psi Delta on this project almost from the beginning. As a resident here in Vermillion, I had watched the Sigma Nu house that's across the street from my church. When it fell, when that chapter went away, now it's essentially a dead site because there's nothing that can be done with it because it doesn't have the parking requirements. We don't want all of these Greek houses, I feel, as a community member, to move out of the area around the university. And if we continue with this parking requirement, that's going to be their only options if they need to replace their house. I have been through this house. It is one that cannot be viably renovated to meet their needs. We must tear it down and replace it in order to bring it up to code. So I would ask your support of this ordinance.
Thank you.
Questions?
No, another visitor, another.
Good evening. I'm Laura Roof. I'm the Director of Sorority and Fraternity Life. I live at 1709 Baylor. I wanted to speak on behalf of the fraternity and sorority community in our support of this amendment. As Mary noted, many of our fraternities and sororities are getting older, and our community has grown vastly in the last 5 years. We went from about 800 members to about 1,000 members in our Greek community. So our facilities are in desperate need of repair or rebuild. We, on the university side, have looked into parking to see if it's something viable that we can provide. At this point in time, though, all of the parking lots that are around that Prentice Park neighborhood are either at 98 or 99 or 100% capacity. So we can't provide parking on that side of the campus. On the other side of the campus, over by the dome, there is a little bit of parking available for our students. However, that's across campus, and we realistically know that our students wouldn't necessarily walk from the dome all the way over to Prentice Park. So again, we don't find that a very viable option. So when we're looking at our options for parking and for the growth of our community, we see this as the best possible opportunity for the relationship between the city and the relationship for the city, or for the university, to be able to continue to grow our Greek community.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Rouse, and I'm the Facility Corporation Board at Kappa Alpha Theta at 725 East Clark Street. We are the neighbors of Alpha Zeta Delta, and I am here to show my support for this change. Obviously, we take great care of our historic homes, and we want them to be the best for the women that are in our facilities and bring them into the glory that they should be. We take great care to maintain them and provide modern amenities to the women who are living there, obviously, as well. It does restrict us quite a bit to have limitations on what we can do in needing to bring things up to code. So for us personally, and I can speak to our planning for future projects, we are limited in what we can do right now because of being able to bring things up to code. So I just want to thank Mary for all the work that she's done in investigating this, and thank you as well for listening and considering the situation that we're in.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, we'll turn it over to the council for deliberation. Tom?
Just have some questions that I've been asked to ask. Certainly the fraternities and sororities have been good neighbors to those who remain in their residences, mostly single family. Others are single family, mostly rental. But, and a question perhaps for Jose, aren't there other plans for multi-family dwellings or apartment buildings along Pine Street? And the character of this neighborhood, except for the Greek houses, is changing drastically if it becomes half residence and half parking. What's to happen with the residents of the neighborhood along Plum and Pine?
I guess what's to happen with the residents would be a question to them. As far as what's going to happen in this neighborhood, we have had conversation with the property owner that he's planning on actually building several fourplexes. At this point, to my knowledge, I think there's just one that he's building, but he has...
One each year, isn't that correct?
I'm not sure about the one each year. We've had
This
some
is
that...
on North Pine?
Yeah, I think roughly behind where your property
300
would
block
be.
north.
Yep. So there's that, I guess, to go. But I mean, right now, we do have numbers as far as the cut between single-family resident, homeowner-occupied, and rentals. And I would say in this area here, you're probably talking already about half and half, single, unoccupied, or rental. So I guess I don't know. Whatever's going to happen to it.
Well, I guess my question for the representatives is, have you talked to your other neighbors and what do they think? Or have you only talked to the city?
We've talked to our great neighbors.
Please.
We've talked to our Greek neighbors, and they're in support of finding some other alternative option for parking. We've also talked to the homeowner directly behind our property, and he rents that property and is not apt to sell it outright to us so that we could do anything else with that property. I'm not quite sure what do you mean, what do they think of it as far as providing some other options for parking, or?
Steve, do you have a question, please?
Yes, to Mary. Is 22 parking spots, can you build 22 parking spots within your property?
On our property?
Yeah.
No,
If you
we'll
rent-
have enough room for 8 parking spots directly behind our house. And so we'll need to find an additional 13 or 14 parking spots. And so we are trying to work with the owner of the property behind us to see about that property, kind of cutting the back end of that property. The other properties in that alleyway, if you were to drive down it, most all of the other properties have parking behind them that have been purchased by Greek houses. And so really the back end of all of those other properties are already parking except for this 2.5 lots behind us. And so we would look to do that, purchase that alley easement or that alley length behind us. And he would like to keep some alley access so that if, I don't know why, but so they could drive up from the alley into their land, I guess. And so we would have enough room there for 12 parking spots if we took the length of that alley. And then we would work with our other neighbors on 2 additional spots. But finding 12 to 14 spots in our neighborhood versus finding 45 to 47 parking spots in our neighborhood is much, much more reasonable.
Okay. Steve, Bo?
Laura, could I ask you a question? The way this ordinance is written right now, it says if a new fraternity or sorority came in, that they would be required to have a lot of parking.
Yes, if they are not building on a previously owned space, correct?
Yeah.
So if we were to bring a 5th sorority, which has always been a rumor that people want, right? If they were to want to go into the old Sigma New house, then we would be in the same position here, where they would only be dealing with the detriment. But if they were to want to build, say, out by the dome, where there's lots of vacant spaces, then they would have to have the full parking capacity.
In my work at the university, I do retention research, and one of the things that I have found is that students who are in the Greek system, despite their ACT scores or the high school ranks, are more likely to graduate from college and more likely to persist from year to year. So I've always encouraged at least the academic people that I talk to most of the time to encourage building of Greek systems, Greek houses. And I would like the council to think about amending this ordinance to allow even new large-scale Greek-oriented housing in the future to comply with the grandfathered real estate measure. Because I think even building new with 53 or whatever the spaces is for every 200 square feet is just almost an impossible task. And I know that USD has not built a new Greek house for a long time and probably won't, but it just seems like it's an unnecessary barrier to have that large of a parking requirement.
Yeah, I would agree that the parking requirement being eased up for new potential organizations would make us more attractive for extension or expansion of new organizations. Yes, you are correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
I do have one more question, unless someone else wishes to speak first. And I don't know whether this is for the city engineer or the city attorney, but given that there are going to be more fourplexes coming into this area, and if someone purchased a piece of land that where the parking is required, similarly to this, does that mean they can also ask for parking elsewhere and still go ahead and build their building?
No, the way that the existing ordinance is written already for the multifamily dwellings, they would have to provide the required parking within their lot. So they wouldn't be allowed, multifamily would not be allowed to go to a separate lot or whatever the case might be to provide that parking that's required.
So they wouldn't both sets of groups wouldn't be on equal ground then?
No, they're not. They're not right now based on the ordinance.
Catherine, go ahead.
I'll say is the main difference between the two categories that a multifamily fourplex type thing is the parking is determined by the number of sleeping rooms, is that right? Or the number of, that's how many stalls you need, whereas this fraternity sorority is based on the square footage of the building?
Yeah, the apartments right now are essentially based on the number of bedrooms that you have in the unit. If it's a one-bedroom apartment unit, then they're required to have 2 parking stalls for that 1-bedroom unit. If it's an apartment complex that has 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms and whatever, a mix of them, then you would add all the bedrooms together and that's what you would get. Now the ordinance also for apartment complexes, it also removes some parking if you have garages. If you have a 1-stall garage, and there's a factor that you can apply. So I mean, right now it's completely different. They're required to have parking, but after that, then how they're calculated, it's not even close to being the same right now.
Certainly.
So per Mary's point about the square footage of the building, it seems like, I don't know how they came up with the calculation for that, but because not all of the building is being used as sleeping rooms, it's also gathering and living spaces. I don't know exactly what my question is, but would that also apply to new buildings, like what Steve was saying? Like we take that into consideration that there's...
If it's a new building right now or with the new ordinance, if this were to happen, then whatever building it is, then we just take the total square footage and divide it by 200, and that's the number of parking that you're going to get. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's how, whether that space is used as a bedroom or a kitchen or a bathroom or a living room area, whatever the case might be, it's still the total floor area with square footage. So we don't differentiate between living quarters and recreational space.
I think there is one difference, and that is if you have like senior citizens facilities, I don't think they're being held to that.
Yeah, I mean, all of them are, and if you look at the ordinance, and I do have it here, I don't know how many uses there are, but every use essentially has a different
That's right.
way
I
of
just want to
calculating.
clarify for the people here that for those facilities, not everybody has a vehicle and that sort of thing, so we do allow a difference there. Steve, is your point to take away the word new? Or just say that it's for any?
I guess I would argue that for any Greek house, either built on existing Greek house land or
Undeveloped.
that the formula that
I'm just
Jose's
wanting
got on the
clarification for what he's, I think on Jose.
I guess I do have a comment, I guess, and I think I understand what you're trying to do or say anyways, but if you're going to be modifying this particular ordinance, this ordinance is based on that, on the on-street demand right now. So then it would be difficult to calculate for a new fraternity or sorority what that demand is, because it's zero, right? They don't exist. So then essentially what you're going to be saying is that they don't have to provide parking because they're not going to be, they weren't a detriment before. So I don't know how you necessarily would be calculating that factor. You might actually be, it might actually backfire in a way. Because if they're going to be coming from 50 residents right now to, or coming to 60, well, now they're going to have to provide 60, because at the end of it, the heart of the ordinance is that they're not going to be making the parking any worse than what it is right now. So whether changing it, yeah, if you want to change it, that's fine, but we might want to just play with that 200. Maybe instead of 200, maybe it needs to be 400. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
that's what was going through my mind too, but even
yeah, I'm just, you might, it might be better to just pick a different number, and we can look at different ordinances, I guess.
Right, and we don't have to do it today, right? I mean, we could just, would you rather do it
more than 10 minutes?
John, please.
I think to Mr. Ward's point, and first I want to thank Jose. This issue kind of came up, and I think there's 8-10 different university communities we looked at across the upper Midwest, and we kind of looked at what their philosophies were, or their code. And I think it's fair to say no two were the same. They were all over the board in terms of how they measured these. So I guess what that told us was there's no perfect system. But to your point, Mr. Ward, in what Laura was offering there too, I think it is one of those that perhaps, since we don't, to my knowledge, have any sort of new Greek houses, fraternities, sororities looking to come to our community, to our university, perhaps if the council feels that for our existing one, this would make good sense, we might suggest you adopt that one, and then we'll take it back either to policies and procedures. We'll work on that. Because typically, I hope there's a long lead time. Before they do come to the university, there's probably policies and approvals that have to take place. It would give us time as a staff to bring you a new proposal, and you might have to go in and update this later this year, but allow us to spitboard some ideas and see what we come up with.
I would just also like to make sure you understand that we're talking also about rooming and boarding houses, not just fraternities and sororities. So, just to make sure. Where are we?
I would move approval of the current amendment as written. I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the proposal as printed. Is there further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Is the shovel ready? Moving to item D. Vacation of right-of-way lying between Lot 3B and Lot 4, Michael's Addition, City of Vermillion, Clay County, South Dakota. Jose again, please.
Thank you. Petition signed by all of the abutting property owners to vacate the new street right-of-way abutting lots 3B and 4 of Michael's Addition, I think it's said, has been submitted by the South Dakota Sigma chapter, or SAE. I do have a map showing this area. There it is. This would be Madison Street, Adams Street, and Madison again. The current SAE house is right here. This is the gravel parking lot that they have been utilizing. SAE actually owns 3B and Lot 4. And for some reason, back in the 60s when this was platted, Madison Street was actually planned to go straight through. So this lot here, and this is a church here, those lots, they never dedicated the rest of Madison. Don't know why, just the way it happened. But essentially, the fraternity right now has been using that unopened right-of-way as parking for their facility. Well, They have, like I said, they have actually come to the city asking for the right-of-way to be vacated. I know long-term, they are planning on moving or reconstructing a new fraternity on the south side of their property, within that lots 3B, the unused right-of-way, and lot 4, and then putting the parking on where the existing fraternity would be or is right now, so on the north side of the street. So essentially, they're just flip-flopping everything. The request for a vacation was submitted to the utilities to see if there were any utilities encroaching within there. We got all of our responses. We have, as far as the right-of-way, if it were to be vacated, the property owner would be requested or required, I guess, to replat the property into one lot, and then at that point, we would be acquiring all of the required utility easements around the perimeter of the property. The city will be recording the vacation at a cost of $30. That would be the cost to the city. With all this said, administration recommends the vacation of a portion of the street running between lots 3B and lot 4, Michael's addition.
Thank you, Jose. Anyone in the audience wish to comment on this item? Turn to the council.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
I'll be abstaining from this vote as I represent one of the abutting property owners
Okay, thank you.
to this property.
Mike, if you'll note that, please. If you were going to, no. Motion to second to approve the vacation. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. This is Jose night.
Hey.
Item 6E, first reading of ordinance 1355 to amend Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 155, Zoning Regulations, Section 155.075A, Telecommunication Tower, Antenna Support Structures, and Wireless Communication Facilities, to add an exception allowing the City Council to consider the construction of a stealth or camouflaged towers within 300 feet of residential zoning or uses. Jose, please.
Thank you. Shortly after the removal of the old water tower, the city received a request, I guess, from a cell tower contractor to allow for the construction of a cell tower at the intersection or at the lot where the old water tower was, which is at Bloomingdale and Market Street. The former water tower had cell phone companies located within it or on it. City staff met with one of the contractors requesting the tower and discussed the possibility of constructing a cell tower at this location. The existing zoning ordinance does not allow for a cell tower to be constructed within 300 feet of a residential use or zone. Telecommunication towers are only allowed on property zone central business, general business, heavy industrial, and general industrial. The cell tower contractor suggested that the city amend the current ordinance to allow for the construction of stealth camouflage towers, and I do have some pictures of what those may look. Some of these towers, the camouflage ones, may look like trees. Others look like flagpoles, which my understanding, there's quite a few of these in Sioux Falls. There's one that looks like some form of obelisk. There's one that just looks like a monopole. I don't know how that's stealth, but there's a water tower looking one, and there's another obelisk one over here in this picture there. The Policies and Procedures Committee directed staff to draft an ordinance that provides for an exception to the current zoning ordinance requirements for discussion and consideration. The proposed amendment establishes a process to notify the neighbors of a hearing. The hearing would be for the City Council to consider and approve a specific design for a location. So they're not deciding on the location; they're just picking the looks of it. After the approval by the City Council of the specific design, the applicant would still have to go to the Planning Commission and request and apply for a conditional use permit from the Planning Commission as is required for the placement of said tower. The Planning Commission did review this item during their May 8th meeting. At that meeting, the Planning Commission recommended approval to the City Council by a vote of 5-2. Some members of the Planning Commission were concerned with the Planning Commission that the Planning Commission would be obligated to grant a conditional use permit after the City Council had approved the exception to the distance or the look of the tower itself. Some neighbors of the Market and Bloomingdale property attended the Planning Commission meeting and expressed concerns about the telecommunication tower at this location location. Again, it should be noted that the proposed ordinance would only apply to the central business district, the general business district, the general industrial, and the heavy industrial zone land in the city, and not just any single property in town. The city's cost would be publishing at this point. Administration recommends adoption of the first reading of the ordinance 1355 to add the exception to this, allowing the city council to construct a stealth camouflage tower within 300 feet of residential zone or use. The second reading, if approved, would be at the June 5th meeting.
Thanks, Jose. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this topic?
I can do that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, for letting us be here tonight. My name is Kurt Walter. I do represent Verizon Wireless on their ongoing ability to provide really good service. Like Jose had said, that what we're looking at doing is not changing your ordinance specifically. It's allowing the city to find the right spot. What we're getting at now, you should have a lot of handouts that came with a package, I believe. So there's a lot of stuff in there. What we're really getting at is technology, and the wireless industry needs more capacity. So each site we have gets full, basically. And we need more sites to cover that. All the smartphones, everybody Googling, Facebook, that kind of stuff, deals with data, which is a lot more traffic than voice. So basically everybody at the university, all those young people are using a lot of our network. So what we're trying to do, we need to be where the usage is. What this amendment could do is allow us to get closer. It doesn't change any requirements from the city. If we find the right spot, the city staff, city planning, city council will decide whether that would work or not. It's not a carte blanche that we can move into people's backyards or anything like that. What we're doing is allowing some flexibility. If we take a look at a city map, let's see if I have a zoning map in here. Thank you. If we look at this zoning map, we've got a lot of residential area that we're not going to be able to go in to begin with. But what we're trying to do is, if you want to talk specifics of what we were brought to the city, we can do that. But at this point, we're just talking about getting closer to where the people are. This particular area right here, the current ordinance, we won't be able to build anything there. So we just can't cover anything. Verizon has a current facility over here, and I believe we're over here. What we're trying to cover is the rest of your city. And it's not about Verizon trying to be, well, it's Verizon trying to be better, but it's about serving the people in the community. You can read all the stuff, all the handouts. 70-some odd percent E911 calls come from cell phones, and emergency services use our services, and just basically the safety and the services of your residents.
Is this line of sight transmission?
Yes. Yeah, I can go on for an hour, but I'm going to stop right there.
Thank you.
You bet. I'll be here to answer any questions anybody might have.
I think it's to the council now.
Do you have alternative sites in case this doesn't work? I mean, there's a lot of bluff in the county. Since it's line of sight, right? Like FM? Oh,
yes.
I know.
What we're doing is our engineers pick what works best, and A lot of times they draw a circle on a map and it's in somebody's backyard. So we have to work with our engineers saying, hey, that's not going to work. This is what the city says we can do, so let's try over here. At this point, this is what we're looking at. Specifically this site, there was a water tower there. We thought we could build another water tower. It wouldn't really change the historical look of the city skyline. But no, we don't have anything else. If you guys choose to amend this, then we would come back to the city council for an actual lease, because you guys own the property that we're looking at. So in this particular junction, the city holds all the cards. So.
Other council members' comments? Concerns?
I have a couple of comments. If someone else wants to speak first, please go ahead.
Certainly.
There were antennas on the previous water tower, is that right? The water tower that came down?
Correct.
And was there a loss of coverage after those were removed?
Those were different companies' antennas. I believe, I don't know specifically, but I believe they built a tower to replace that on a city park.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
As a baseball.
Sprint or Swiftel had equipment on top of the old water tower, and when that tower was coming down, we had to provide our notice and so forth. That one, they worked out a conditional use permit. It was approved by the Planning Commission to locate it within the fairgrounds property. It's right up abutting almost one of the fences there at the fairgrounds.
Simply because I've heard from residents, the two residents closest to where the water tower used to be, and I realize we're not talking about that specific site, but let's talk about residences in general, that where a tower may or may not go. The concerns of both of these, directly south of this site and directly east of this site, are concerns about property values, concerns about safety in case something falls in a storm, and that they are comfortable with a 300-foot distance, and less than 300 feet to both of those is unacceptable to these people who are residents and citizens of Vermillion. This is on the edge of a commercial area. And these people realize they're on the edge of a commercial district, but they're in a residential district, and they're more comfortable with 300 feet. So I was asked to express those concerns this evening. Neither one of these people could be here tonight. One is very ill, and one had to be out of town this evening. So I agreed to relay this.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Pleasure of the council, please.
Second.
Motion to second to approve the proposal. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no?
No?
Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Jose. Oh, you're still here.
Yeah, I'm not done yet.
Item F, first reading of ordinance 1356 to amend Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 155 Zoning Regulations, Section 155.008 Definitions, B, to amend the definition of agribusiness. Jose, please.
Thank you. On March 27th, the Planning Commission recommended zoning amendment to the City Council that would have allowed agribusiness use within the industrial districts as a conditional use. At a public hearing to discuss this item at the City Council is scheduled for April 17th. At the meeting, the City Council tabled the item and asked staff to better define agribusiness to ensure that the uses as intended are not abused. Are as intended and not abused. The existing definition of agribusiness essentially would be modified by removing the words farming and large scale. There's other tweaks into it. The modification done to the definition by staff and the city attorney only allow for farms that produce, process, and distribute agricultural products. And And a farm is defined already by the city code as a parcel of land of at least 10 acres in size used for agricultural purposes. This would eliminate small farms from sprouting, I guess, throughout the industrial districts, but still allow for larger farms in that case. Staff also added the definition uses associated with aquaculture. A note should be mentioned that already by ordinance, no livestock is allowed within city limits unless it's a grandfather use. And there's already 2 existing properties, to my understanding, that are grandfather to have livestock in town, and both of them would be actually south of the bluff along the river. The Planning Commission did review this item at their May 8th meeting. At that meeting, they unanimously recommended approval to the City Council of the amendment. The cost of this to the city would be publishing of the ordinance. Administration recommends approval of the ordinance 1356, amending the definition of agribusiness. The second reading would be on June 5th.
Thanks, Jose. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to comment on this item? Seeing none, turn it to council. A motion, a second, to approve first reading of ordinance 1356. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no? Motion carries. Thanks. It's brought to my attention that on item G, we have to bring this off the table.
That'd be correct.
Is that right, Jim? We tabled it previous time. Remove it from the table, is it?
Yeah, for this meeting.
Just okay, all right, thank you. Okay, then item G, first reading of ordinance 1353 to amend Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 155, Zoning Regulations to add the conditional use and applicable standards of an agribusiness for GI General Industrial and HI Heavy Industrial Districts. Jose, please.
Thanks. This item is related to the previous item just approved by the council, but essentially in 2016, city staff performed a review of the zoning ordinance to ensure that what the defined uses in the document were also included in the text of the zoning districts. While doing this, we did find that the definition or the term agribusiness was not included as one of the uses. The Planning Commission did review this item, or the ordinance that's in question 1353, at their March 27th meeting. At that meeting, they expressed concerns with allowing all forms of agribusiness within the district or within the city limits. However, they did unanimously recommend considering the uses as a conditional basis within the industrial districts. This item was brought up to the council at the April 17th meeting. At that meeting, the city council asked to table the item, and as I mentioned earlier, they asked staff to better define agribusiness, which was already discussed. Due to the type of the uses possibly associated with agribusiness, it seems fitting to group these, as I mentioned previously, within the industrial districts, or general industrial, heavy industrial. These districts currently contain some uses associated with agriculture, for example, farm store, feed store, farm implements, stockyard rendering, etc. However, none of these uses currently include within the districts directly deal with agribusiness. The proposed amendments to the ordinance suggested by the Planning Commission would be to only allow the use within the general industrial and heavy industrial as a conditional use permit. So the Planning Commission would still have a say in the matter and the location and so forth, and there would also be public hearings associated with it at the Planning Commission level. The costs associated with this would be publishing and advertising for the public hearings. City Council is asked to approve or take comments and take action on the amendment and hopefully approve it.
Thanks, Jose. Anyone in the audience wish to comment on this? Seeing none, Council? Motion and second to approve the first reading of ordinance 1353 to amend Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 155. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? I'm sorry, Jim?
The only thing on this one is I think this one was not strike.
Yes, this one was.
This has been noticed also.
Yep, for the City Council meeting, yeah.
We're okay? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thanks. You can take a break.
Intermission.
Item 8A. A request to close East Main Street from Plum to Sycamore Avenue on June 8, 9, and 10, 2000, shouldn't that be, and 11, oh, I'm sorry, 8, 9, 10, 2017, from 6:30 p.m. to 10 p.m., and on June 11th, from 3:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. for South Dakota Shakespeare Festival. The request also includes the removal of parking on East Main Street from Plum Street to Sycamore Street from June 5th to June 11th, 2017. And Derek, please. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. The South Dakota Shakespeare Festival is having their annual festival on June 8th to June 11th, and they're requesting to close East Main Street between Plum Street and Sycamore Avenue to limit traffic noise and parking. And here is a visual for the street they're closing. Right here, highlighted in red. Similar to previous years, the barricades will be staffed in case of any incidents or emergency vehicles need access, and it is requested to the council to approve the closing from 6:30 to 10 p.m. on June 8th to June 10th, and 3:30 to 7 p.m. on June 11th, as well as the removal of parking on East Main Street from June 5th to June 11th. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Council? Motion a second to approve the Shakespeare Festival street closing. Question? Okay. Okay. Mike, would you note Rich is recusing? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thanks, Derek. Item B, 8B, permit for consumption but not sale at the Edith B. Segrist Vermillion Public Library at 18 Church Street on June 16, July 21, August 18, and September 15, 2017, from 7 to 9 p.m. for Books and Brew event. And Mike, please.
Susan Hegestad, on behalf of the Vermillion Public Library, has requested a permit to consume alcoholic beverages on public property for their Books and Brew events at the Edith B. Segrist Vermillion Public Library garden behind the library from 7 to 9 p.m. on June 16th, July 21st, August 18th, and September 15th. If the weather doesn't cooperate with the event, it will be moved into the Kozak room. A copy of the request and information is included in the packet. State Statute 35(1)(5.5 provides the governing body of municipality may permit the consumption but not sale of alcoholic beverages on property owned by the public. This event was done last year without any incidents. The City Council last year approved consumption permits for the Books and Brew event. Administration would recommend approval of the special permit to allow consumption but not sale of alcoholic beverages at the library on the date stated.
Thank you, Mike. Anything, Council? Motion a second to approve the consumption on those dates. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is library board appointment. We had 2 openings. We had 5 applicants, and I appreciate people applying for this. And we're renaming Greg Redlin and Diane Leja to continue on in their role. I guess we need the council's approval of that. I think. I don't know. Is that just an appointment?
You should vote on it.
Okay. Yes. Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item D, resolution for acceptance of work library expansion 2013 CDBG. And Mike, please.
Well, this dates back a little ways, but on February 6, 2012, the City Council awarded a contract to Waffle Construction Company for the addition and renovation of the public library. The construction project was funded from the estate of Edith Segrist, the Library Foundation, the Library Board, and second penny sales tax, along with the $200,000 Community Development Block Grant, referred to as CDBG. The CDBG funds are federal grants, and there's compliance requirements. CCOG provided grant administration for this project. They've attached a letter in the packet here when the state was doing a review of CCOG's documentation for this grant. It was determined that the final grant closeout documents were never completed. There was also a civil rights compliance documents and project certifying documents that were signed by the mayor and John as city manager. CCOG is requesting adoption of the resolution to accept the work. The library project was completed and final payment was made in September of 2013. Administration will recommend approval of the resolution to accept the work, and this will be forwarded on to CCOG to complete the CDBG file.
Thank you, Mike. Council? Tom?
Seeing that the I'm sorry.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Go ahead.
Second. Never mind.
No, we're up for, it's up for discussion.
We're going to move. We're going to discuss it then.
Well, we moved it, now discuss it. We can just do it the opposite order, Tom.
I was going to argue for it and then make the motion.
Saved you. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item E, transfer of fire department equipment. And Matt, you've sat here patiently. Oh, I'm sorry, Keith. Excuse me. Yeah, the other Matt. Matt was supposed to be here. Excuse me.
Good evening, and thanks for letting me talk to you guys tonight. I'm here to ask for your approval and to show the support of the Vermillion Fire EMS Department of the transfer of the listed rescue tools that are on. I think you guys have a list of the tools to the Canastota Fire Department, which at this time has no rescue equipment at all. So it's come to my knowledge that the city and the Rural Association both own parts of these, so we're asking for your guys' approval to transfer assets to their department. So that's what I'm here tonight, just show our support of it.
Okay, thank you.
If any questions.
Council, questions, comments?
I move approval.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the transfer of listed items. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Thank you.
No. Motion carries. Thank you. Item F, resolution to prepay special assessment bond. Mike, please.
The city issues special assessment bonds to pay for improvements that were assessed to the benefit of the adjoining property owners. After the project is completed, a special assessment bond is prepared, and when sold, the electric utility purchases these bonds as an interfund loan. The interfund loan saves in bond issuance costs, which would need to be passed along as costs of the project to the benefiting property owners. The bond resolution that we do adopt for the interfund loan does provide for prepayments, and that all any funds payments received are restricted until the bond is paid. The city issued a special assessment bond series 2015B in the amount of $316,180.58 for the concrete surfacing and other street improvements on North Norbeck from Roosevelt to East Clark. These special assessments provided for a delay in assessing the property owners until April of 2017, with the city paying the interest on these special assessments until that time. In 2016, we had one of the properties changed hands and 2 of the assessments were paid, and at that time we adopted a resolution to prepay that portion of the special assessment. We've had 5 more property owners have paid their assessments prior to the interest date on April 17th, and so the resolution prepared there requests the prepayment of $157,879.32 for special assessment fund, along with the accrued interest to prepay these bonds. These bonds do carry 3.5% interest that if we left them outstanding that we can't make by investing that money. So this prepayment will save some interest payments and get our special assessment collections matching up with the future payments.
Thanks, Mike. Council?
Move approval.
Second. Motion to second to prepay special assessment bond. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thanks, Mike. Item 9A, bid openings, 2017 miscellaneous concrete project. Jose, please.
Thank you.
You got away, huh?
City has an ongoing program right now to update handicap ramps within the city and also do some minor concrete repairs to either curb and gutter sections or street sections themselves. At the same time, we also repair some storm sewer inlets within or around the city. Bids for this project were open on May 11th. The city sent requests to 14 contractors. Out of those 14, the city received 3 bids. The low bid was from M&M Construction from Vermillion for $33,379.20. The high bid was for $88,032. The city's estimate was $47,000. Bidding is required by state law when the cost of the project is estimated to exceed $50,000 due to how close we were to the $50,000 limit. We decided to bid it rather than request quotes. The sections of the city that we would be working on at this point would be a large pavement repair within Duke and Vassar. We're going to be redoing some sidewalk ramps at that location as well, and then also installing a piece of sidewalk along Princeton from the new TSC building to the the biotest building, yep. And then there's also going to be some inlet repairs throughout the city, I guess, sprinkled throughout. The project will be paid for through several funds, mainly the miscellaneous concrete fund and then the storm sewer fund, the storm sewer fee that we collect. Administration recommends awarding the project to M&M Construction from Vermillion for the amount of $33,379.20.
Just for clarification, the property north of TSC, is that city property? Or is that
Yeah, there's an actual
DBC?
alley going through there. So the alley, it's a pseudo alley street combination. There's a portion of it that's within the city, and that's going to be where we're going to be putting the sidewalk.
Okay. Council? Tom?
I just have a question. Sometimes we see who it was that bid, and sometimes we don't. Is it just...
In this case, we only received 3 bids, so I guess I just put the value.
Instead of the other 2, you didn't put the name. You just chose not to do that.
I just didn't put the names.
Even on dual bids, we see the other one.
I can tell you who they are if you're interested.
Do you want to know?
Please.
Yeah, let's see, do you know the low bid already? The middle bid was from Walker Construction from Vermillion for $37,974.19, and the high bid was from Masonry Components from Yankton, and they were for the $88,000 and some odd dollars.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Further discussion? Don't think we have a motion yet. Motion and second to approve the 2017 miscellaneous concrete project. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thanks, Jose. I think you're dismissed. Item 10, City Manager's Report. John, please.
Thank you. Just as the City Council appointed individuals to serve on the Library Board, just a reminder that expression of interest forms for the Planning Commission are due June 9th. We do have 4 seats that are terms are expiring this year, and we anticipate if those are turned in by June 9th that the City Council would appoint 4 individuals to 5-year terms at the June 19th meeting. We have started the spring fire hydrant flushing. That's scheduled to last until approximately May 26. It's just a reminder that individuals, particularly if you see it in your area, may want to run your faucets just a little bit to flush water before you start washing clothes. Speaking of water, our DENR here in the state has recognized the City of Vermillion Water Department staff for meeting all the requirements for the Safe Drinking Water Act, and that is for the 16th consecutive year that they've met all those requirements. So a nice job by the Water Department staff in terms of carrying that out again. Administratively, Jose approved the final plat of Lot 3, Block 6, and so we note those to the City Council in the reports that those are entered into the minutes. Also, city offices will be closed on Monday, May 29th, as that is a Memorial Day holiday. Something that has been a long time in the making, but the ribbon cutting for the new pool tentatively is set for Tuesday, May 30th at 4:30 p.m. at Prentice Plunge. So that's Tuesday the 30th at 4:30, Prentice Plunge. We hope to have the ribbon cutting, a chance to see the facilities, the pool, the bathhouse, that sort of thing. There'll be no swimming that evening, but people have a chance to come to the ribbon cutting and celebrate that success of our community. And then also included in your packet was a raffle notification. The St. Agnes Knights of Columbus will be selling the $20 Monday Night Football books. The prize is $50 per football game. The winner is determined using the digits of the team score from each one of those Monday night football games during the NFL season. And the proceeds from this raffle are used by the Knights of Columbus for their charitable causes.
One question, John. What time did you say Tuesday, May 30?
Tentatively, we have it set for 4:30. We're still trying to put all the pieces together, but I would think that 4:30 will be close to when the actual ribbon cutting will be.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions for our city manager, Steve?
John, for the ribbon cutting for the pool, will the mayor be going down a slide with a large pair of scissors to cut a ribbon?
My Speedo doesn't fit anymore.
I would never answer that question.
Not only no, but...
Just curious.
Yeah.
So there's no way.
Yeah. And you're close by. You wouldn't even have to change. Well, thank you. Next is invoices payable. Any items to ask Mike? Mike, on the number 16, the pictometry, is that a one-year price or is that...
Yeah, that's for 1 year.
That's our share for
Yep.
1 year. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mike on the bills?
Move we pay our bills.
Motion is second to pay our bills. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 12, consensus agenda. Set a public hearing date of June 5, 2017 for a special permit to exceed permissible sound levels by no more than 50% for the South Dakota Shakespeare Festival on June 6 to 10, 2017 from 6:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. and June 11, 2017 from 3:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. at the Prentice Park Bandshell Amphitheater for Shakespeare Festival performances.
Approval of the consensus agenda.
Did we get a second? Oh, speak up. Approval of the consensus agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries, Steve. Motion to adjourn. All in favor. Seconded. All in favor. Say aye. Aye. Negative. Say no. We've never had that happen. Thank you.
Good job, Eric. Thank you.